Welcome back to this second video on pulmonary function testing. Now, in the first video we went through the lung volumes that we should be remembering. There's 4 of them, and I've written them out here. I've sort of reorganized this diagram a bit because I've added what we're going to be doing in this video. And if we remember, we said we just have somebody breathing normally on a machine here. The machine's recording the volume against time. As we go up, that's inspiration. That's bringing volume into the lung, and then as we go down the line, it's exhaling volume. So this yellow dotted line here is an important line. This is the sort of lung volume at which we do our regular normal breathing. Okay, so down here would be 0 lung volume. This would be the lungs completely collapsed. We've identified our max inspiration, our max, the fullest we can make our lungs filled up with air. And then we have our max exhalation. So this is our resting expiratory level. This is where we do our tidal breathing. And we said that the volume of our regular normal breaths is our tidal volume. Above that we have this inspiratory reserve volume up to our max inspiration. And below that we have our expiratory reserve volume down to our max expiration. We also said that there's a volume of gas in the lungs that just sort of remains there to keep the lungs inflated, and we used the analogy of trying to blow up a balloon and how difficult it is initially to get the balloon open, but once there's a little bit of volume in the balloon, it becomes much more compliant and much easier to open. And that's why that volume, that residual volume is in the lungs that remains there all the time to keep the lungs at a certain volume, just to keep them a little bit inflated. So, as we said in this video, we're going to look at lung capacities, and this is one of those things where they can be kind of difficult to explain. It's really just a terminology thing that we use when talking about pulmonary function testing. So I'm just going to go ahead and sort of define these, and these lines here, the sort of magenta one, the red, the blue, and then the orange, are the 4 capacities we're going to be talking about. So what's this first one here? Well, we can see that it goes from our end expiration of our regular breathing. So it goes from our resting expiratory level, and it goes all the way up to our max inspiration. So this is a sort of, we know that this is probably going to be an inspiratory capacity of some kind, right? Because it's occupying the whole inspiration portion here, from our end resting expiration all the way up to our max lung volume, our max inspiration. So this purple one here is actually called the inspiratory capacity. So it's an inspiratory reserve volume plus our tidal volume, and it is called the inspiratory capacity. Inspiratory capacity. Okay, simple enough so far. Inspiratory capacity, tidal volume plus inspiratory reserve volume. Now, what's this red one? So this next one is probably the most important one to remember, because we use this the most in terms of evaluating people's lung disease. This one is called the vital capacity, and it's simply a measure of the greatest breath out that a patient can take after taking in the greatest breath in that they can take. So if you take the biggest breath in you can, and then exhale the biggest breath out you can, that volume which you exhale out after taking in the biggest breath you can is your vital capacity. Okay, so it's the biggest breath out after the biggest breath in, and it's called a vital capacity. So it goes from max inspiration to max expiration, and this is called, as we mentioned, vital capacity. Capacity. There we go. So, and as I mentioned, this is probably the most important in the video. At least when you get your first grips of pulmonary function testing, we use vital capacity a fair amount. So what's this next one here? This blue one. So this one's a little bit more complicated to get your head around, and it just takes a little bit of time to get the intuition of it, but you will get there eventually. When we say that we have this resting expiratory level, we say as you're sitting watching this video and taking your nice easy regular breaths, which you're not even thinking about, you're doing that at a certain lung volume. There's a certain amount of volume in your lungs at the point where we're doing this breathing. We don't breathe our regular normal breaths from 0 lung volume. Okay, so our lungs aren't entirely deflated when we take our regular breaths that we're taking right now. There's a volume in the lungs at resting breathing, at sort of that resting expiratory level. Okay, and that's what we call that our functional residual capacity. Okay, so it is the sum of our residual capacity and our expiratory reserve volume. So and you can look at it as the amount of volume in the lungs at sort of end resting expiration. So that just after our regular normal breaths, after the end of a normal resting expiration, how much volume is there in the lungs? And that's called our functional residual capacity. So let's write that one out. Functional residual capacity. Okay, so it's that volume in the lung at end expiration of regular easy breathing. And then what's this orange one? This orange one should be reasonably obvious. I mean, this is just our entire lung volume, right? This is going from 0 volume all the way up to our max inspiration, our sort of our biggest breath in, the fullest our lungs can get. So this is just our sort of total lung capacity, okay? I said volume before, so I meant capacity. Yeah, these are all capacities. So this is our total lung capacity, right? Because a capacity, by definition, is the sum of two or more volumes. Okay, so just how our inspiratory capacity is the sum of this volume and this volume. Okay, so a capacity is two or more volumes added together, and this is our total lung capacity. Okay, total lung capacity. Okay, so there you have it. Those are our four capacities, and we defined our 4 volumes. We have our tidal volume, inspiratory reserve volume, expiratory reserve volume, residual volume, and then we have our inspiratory capacity, the sum of our tidal volume and our inspiratory reserve volume. We have our vital capacity, which is that big breath out after the biggest breath in. We have our functional residual capacity, which is the sum of our RV plus our ERV. And we have our total lung capacity, which is everything, which is all of them, all the way up to the top of max inspiration. So there we have it. Those are the 4 volumes and 4 capacities, and we're now sort of ready to get our teeth into some of the pulmonary function testing and some of the terminology and some of the testing strategies that we have.